welcome to the second part of how to create incredible sounding string arrangements using string murmurations powered by Scaler. For those of you that haven't seen the first video, we got as far as this. Now, everything that we have that you've just heard has a single instance of Scaler and a single instance of string murmurations. What we're going to do now is look at an approach to orchestrate that for an even richer, more sumptuous sound. So copy string murmurations with Option drag a couple of times. And with this one, I'll set a different sound. Last time in the first video, I just used the preset number 1, the wonderful sounding Launchpad. But for this second instance of string murmurations, we use Broken Hearts. We'll just close off that and let's make a copy once again. And for this instance, we'll pick something else. Let's go for Soaring Symphony. So now each of these has 3 different sounds. Now, rather than using 3 different scalars to drive those, this time what we're going to do is extract the MIDI using the drag function from Scaler and drop it onto, don't want the tempo, and drop it onto the track. And we can now see a MIDI region that is everything that Scaler was originally playing. If we just have a look in there, we will be able to zoom in and have a look at the humanized effect that Scaler provided. And in fact, you can see that even at this level of zoom, it hasn't come through. Those are right on the grid. So actually, we now have the opportunity to humanize in a rather more interesting way. So let's just select all of those, and we will get the rather underused logic function, Open MIDI Transform. I use this all the time for all kinds of things. It's an incredibly useful utility, and it knocks the spots of things like Ableton, which do not have such a detailed level of MIDI note control. The architecture of this thing is based upon the format of MIDI messages. MIDI messages are comprised of a status byte which defines the type of event we're talking about, a note or a control change, etc. And then, of course, they're typically associated with a channel. In the case of a note, we have a pitch and a velocity. We also have some DAW-specific parameters here. There are 3 columns that indicate the position of an event, the length of the event, and the subposition of the event. So what we have here is a way of operating on any given MIDI message at any position in the DAW's timeline. Byte 2 typically refers to the data associated with a given message. For instance, in the case of a note, it's velocity. What I often do is create a new transform set from scratch, but that isn't necessary in this case because Logic has already provided us with a preset, the so-called humanize. The humanize function takes the position of a note and allows us to operate on it. There are many different ways in which we can operate on that position, but random is going to be good for our purposes here. We just leave the status as note. We don't want to operate on control changes. We don't need to do anything about the channels or the pitches. We're not going to change those. But again, we will randomize the velocities by a relatively modest amount, plus or minus 10. We will also modulate the lengths of each and every note, so we'll randomize those. And again, we have an optional amount that we can set here. Typically, it's bars, quarter notes, 16th notes, ticks. The graph down here indicates the effect of any transform on a given note. Look it up in the manual to better understand how it's feeding back to you. We don't need to go into that now. A tick is, of course, a 240th of a 16th note. So 10 ticks, as is currently displayed there, is pretty small. And let's crank up the amount of variation. Let's go right up to pretty close to a 16th note of each. Make it a bit more pronounced. Right, let's have a listen to that. That's feeling quite nice to me. It's worth noting that that note there did not play. Let's just check for the others. Yep, nor did that one. I thought I heard that. So these two need to be manually corrected because the playhead didn't catch them. So let's just sit them there. We'll quantize them, in fact. Get them coming in right on the beat. Okay, so we've now got quite a nice place to start. And what we now need to do is unpack that MIDI sequence and orchestrate it over the remaining 2 string murmurations. Get a couple of empty region containers. I'm just going to create a new region of the same length here and a new one here. Now, in our first one, I'm going to take a fairly random selection of the notes that we had. That's kind of a bit of a top line. Yeah, we'll grab those guys, reset the song position line, cut them out of there into the clipboard. Then we will go into our next region and paste them back in. Go back to the first region. We'll take some more notes. Cut them out of there. Go to the third region. Paste them back in. So we now have the chords orchestrated fairly randomly over 3 different instances of string murmurations, which each has a different patch. So let's mute off the original scaler, which otherwise would still be playing, and we'll have a listen. I'll just trim that down a little bit. It's been extended, the region's been extended because some of the note lengths were overrunning past the bar line there, and the region extended to encapsulate them. But it's a detail. We don't need to worry about that right now. Let's have a listen. Whenever you do this, it's probably a good idea to pass a bit of human judgment on the result of what was essentially a very random process. So my feeling was that, yeah, see, we didn't have these bass notes spread around enough, so let's just bounce them around a bit. I'm going to set the song position line to the beginning of the first one that I'm going to pick here, because I'm going to take that one and let's go for that one and cut them out. It's important to put the song position line at the beginning of the first selected note because that's the position that they would be pasted back into the next region, as in there. Let's just deselect those. You can see them coming in. And there they are in exactly the same position. Back to the original now. And we'll pick a couple of others. Move the song position line to the beginning of that one. It will be on the grid, so we'll lose an element of the randomization, but it was random, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll cut those out, move to the third, paste them in. We can see they've gone in at the same position, maintaining the integrity of the chords. And now let's have a listen to the whole thing. That's nice, but I decided a few further manual tweaks would be of some benefit, so I've made a cut to save you watching me auditioning various sounds. Also, you can see that I've adjusted the volume faders of the 3 instances of string murmurations, just to give a slightly more pleasing balance. Lastly, we'll turn on our reverb, send a little bit of each one of the 3 to it, and that will give us a kind of unifying quality. So let's have a listen to the whole thing a couple of times through to see how it's sounding. Very nice. Now, in fact, we could have taken the original MIDI file, dragged out of Scaler, and dumped it on 3 different tracks with 3 different string murmurations and played them all back, all of them playing all the notes, but I can assure you it would sound rather clogged and quite artificial. Doing it this way, pruning out the chords and shaping the arrangement as if each player in the string section had been given a slightly different performance to work with, it's much more elegant, and it produces, I hope you would agree, a nice, aesthetically pleasing result. However, we're not finished yet. Check out the next video to see how we can take this to the next level. See you then.